The Indian Air Force is facing a serious math problem. Older jets, like the Soviet-era MiG-21, have reached the end of their airframe life and are being grounded, creating a massive active squadron shortage. When an airspace gap that large opens up in one of the world's biggest militaries, rival superpowers notice, and they both want to be the one to fill it. Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly offered to co-develop his country's Su-57 stealth fighter alongside India. At the same time, former U.S. President Donald Trump extended an offer for America's flagship F-35. Faced with two highly aggressive sales pitches from the world's top defense manufacturers, the Indian government's response has been complete, sustained silence. That quiet approach is entirely deliberate. Buying a fifth-generation fighter jet requires decades of shared infrastructure, maintenance, and training. Choosing a jet means locking your entire military into a 50-year geopolitical alliance. Russia's pitch relies heavily on history. Moscow stood by New Delhi during the 1971 war, and Putin is offering to build on that legacy by co-producing the Su-57 on Indian soil. The hardware itself has a distinct aerodynamic advantage called supercruise. It can maintain continuous supersonic speeds without dumping extra fuel into an afterburner, which drastically extends how far it can fly in combat. This is the source code, the underlying software architecture defining what the aircraft can do and which hardware it communicates with. Moscow is offering to share this, allowing the Indian Air Force to integrate indigenous weapons, like the Astra missile, without Russian permission. Total hardware control and technology transfer sound incredibly appealing, but saying yes to the Su-57 ties India's primary air defense grid directly to a Russian defense industry currently facing intense global sanctions. The American F-35 serves a completely different combat role. Rather than defending airspace, it is a single-engine, highly specialized stealth platform engineered to slip deep behind enemy lines entirely undetected. The catch is the paperwork. Operating American military technology requires extreme operational restrictions, strict congressional approvals, and constant oversight from Washington regarding how and where the jet is used. Turkey provides a clear warning of how strict those conditions are. The moment Ankara purchased a Russian surface-to-air missile system, the United States immediately kicked them out of the F-35 program. India operates that exact same Russian system, the S-400. Integrating highly classified American stealth jets into an airspace monitored by Russian radar systems is an operational risk the Pentagon rarely tolerates. To acquire the F-35, New Delhi would have to concede control over its air defense architecture. Since the F-35 requires constant updates and logistics from U.S.-controlled servers, Washington can effectively ground the entire fleet by simply cutting the data link. Knowing the extreme strings attached to both foreign offers, India is increasingly focusing its budget inward on its own fifth-generation fighter, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, or AMCA. Recent conflicts in the Middle East have delivered a harsh reality check. If your supply chain relies on another country, foreign politicians can cut off your spare parts in the middle of a war, leaving a billion-dollar air fleet collecting dust on the tarmac. You cannot import true defense capability. The AMCA project is the only way India can guarantee that its Air Force will fly when, where, and how it needs to during a conflict. The hurdle for domestic production is time. India's state-run aviation projects have a history of delays, which runs the risk of a new jet becoming technologically obsolete before it enters active service. This timeline comparison chart shows the government's modern countermeasure. By integrating private sector companies directly into the AMCA framework, they are aggressively shrinking the development cycle to get the plane in the air faster. Indian leadership faces a difficult balancing act. They must fix the immediate squadron gap today without draining resources needed for their indigenous fighter tomorrow. That makes the government's ongoing silence a calculated strategy. By keeping both the US and Russia waiting, India is making it clear that it refuses to trade its long-term sovereign independence for a short-term military fix.